Welcome back, everyone, to Watcher of All Things. My name is Kiki. This is my podcast where we talk movies, TV shows, and everything in between. This is episode 8, and I'm so happy to have you joining me. Today we're going to be talking Ricky Stanicky and Shōgun, episode 1 to 3, a great new show on Disney Plus and FX. Yeah, I'm coming to you from a new location. I am currently house sitting for my brother and my sister-in-law, or future sister-in-law, while they're in India for 2 weeks. So I'm dog sitting and recording with another dog other than my own Gracie. So yeah, it's been a good week. It's nice to have some, quiet time just by myself, kind of in my own fortress of solitude for a couple of weeks. I got a big screen, huge 65-inch 4K TV in front of me right now with soccer on, and I woke up at 7:30 this morning to watch my team, Manchester United, played the worst soccer I've ever watched and somehow win. But yeah, it's been another good week. I saw Dune Part 2 again on Tuesday in IMAX, of course, and just as good the second time. And I'm about 80 pages into the book right now, which I'm really enjoying. And I was trying to remember the other day, when's the last time I read a book for just like leisure purposes outside of school? Because like I've mentioned before, I was a history and English student, so all I did for school was just reading and writing. And especially in my master's for history, I would have to read like 3 books a week, basically, or skims enough so that we can just like talk about kind of what the book's arguing. But now it's so refreshing to just be reading a book for relaxation purposes before bed every night, and it's just like a really enjoyable book. And I think actually seeing, if I had read this book without seeing the movies and was just reading it with like no knowledge of this world, maybe I would be stressing, I gotta remember all this. But like I've seen both movies like 100 times now, combined. It's kind of relaxing just going into it and really enjoying the world and having all these like details filled in that like didn't make it in the movie or were changed. Like already the fear is the mind killer prayer that Lady Jessica says, like in the book it's actually Paul saying that when he's getting the Gom Jabbar test, and it's just fun to see like details that they've changed of who's saying what, whether it is for explicit like story details or just because like, what if we just like kind of change the characterization of someone a little bit, that they're, a little more like this, or giving someone more scenes and stuff like that. So I've been really enjoying that and watching Shōgun episodes 1 to 3. I watched all of them last night, and I watched Ricky Stanicky yesterday afternoon, and yeah, it's been a great week of watching stuff, but lots of news as well this week, so let's get into it. So Superman, James Gunn's Superman movie, it's not called Superman Legacy anymore, so it's just Superman. They actually started filming this week. The more casting news is coming out, and this was actually a big one of who's going to be playing Perry White. Hollywood Reporter and Variety and Deadline and everyone this week was reporting that Wendell Pierce was cast as Perry White in James Gunn's Superman movie. Wendell Pierce, perhaps best known for his work as a detective on HBO's seminal crime series The Wire, has been cast as the iconic editor-in-chief of the Daily Planet in James Gunn's Superman. They began filming in Atlanta. Actually, just like yesterday and this morning, James Gunn posted pictures from, I think they're filming in Norway. Yeah, I think it's Norway. I guess they're doing Fortress of Solitude scenes. It's interesting how much they're leaning into the Fortress of Solitude because there's some snow on the logo in the logo reveal last week, which was really cool to see. I thinking back on that logo, I think it looks really nice. I really like that gold outline and just like it's the Kingdom Come S, which is really cool. Anyways, they've been filming for, I guess, a couple weeks now, or a week at least. Now they're in Norway filming all of the Fortress of Solitude stuff, and James Gunn just this morning posted a picture of a random dog he saw that was all friendly with the cast, and yeah, it's I'm very excited for that movie. Like, I cannot wait for that movie, and just like a new direction for DC in general. Plus, I've been a huge fan of everything James Gunn has done in the last few years. Of course, all the Guardians movies, and Peacemaker I think is like really underrated, and his Suicide Squad movie is extremely underrated in my eyes, to be honest. I just really enjoyed all the wacky, that's what he does best, is taking characters that are like kind of less known or less popular, not so mainstream, and making them like really popular and the focal point of the stories. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. And what is it now? It's March. When's Comic-Con? Is DC still like going to Comic-Con? I feel like they will this year, and maybe they'll have some stuff to show this summer at Comic-Con of Superman. That would be really cool. Or whatever the Superman, if they still do, what did they do? The DC Dome, what was the thing, like DC I don't know. They have DC fandom or whatever. They have like all the DC stuff. It would be really cool to see some Superman stuff this summer. Other news, Rebecca Ferguson joins Chris Pratt in thriller Mercy. The wanted filmmaker Timur Bekmambetov definitely nailed that. Oh, there's going to be so much good pronunciation in this episode. Anyways, they're going to be directing the sci-fi pick for Amazon MGM Studios ahead of a worldwide theatrical release. So Rebecca Ferguson, who was just in Dune Part 2 and Mission Impossible and is just like, the talk of the town right now because she is phenomenal. She's going to star opposite Chris Pratt in Mercy, the sci-fi thriller for Amazon MGM Studios, which has been confirmed by a bunch of outlets, and I have the Hollywood Reporter article in front of me. This story is a script by Marco Van Bell, and Chris Pratt stars as a detective in the thriller set in the near future when capital crime is on the rise and he finds himself accused of a violent crime and having to prove his innocence. A spring 2024 start of production is in the works with Amazon MGM Studios looking for a worldwide theatrical release. So that can be interesting. I think Rebecca Ferguson is, she's been in a lot of stuff. It's not like she's a new actor. She's been in the industry for a while, and she's like now just coming to everyone's kind of field of view. And I mean, she was great in all of the Mission Impossible movies she's been in. I think she's been so fantastic in those. And obviously with Dune, she has completely knocked it out of the park. She was in, is it Doctor Sleep, which was the Shining like sequel. Yeah, sequel, right? I never saw it, but people have started to, of course, there's all the Twitter historical revision that happens after someone gives a great performance and like, oh my God, she should have won an Oscar, or they should have won an Oscar for this, but like, it can be good because, when someone puts a movie out, then it's like, oh, well, if you like this person, go check out this stuff because like this, wasn't watched enough or whatever. And I've heard good things about Dr. Sleep, so maybe I'll check that out. But anyways, Chris Pratt, I'm getting a little sick of him, to be honest. And he's just like also super annoying in the public eye. He's like one of those odd, is he going to run for like a future Republican Congress or something? But he's just a really odd guy. But Rebecca Ferguson, I mean, she's hilarious and really cool. So I guess that'll be out next year, 2025. And actually, speaking of Dune, this week we got a trailer for Dune Awakening, which is a third-person open-world survival MMO that takes place on the signature planet Arrakis and sees players starting as a lowly nobody before embarking on a quest to make it to the upper echelons of society through various means. And I think it's coming out on all platforms like console and PC. It looked really cool. I actually really liked the trailer. I mean, it would be nice to have like a Dune single player story type thing like the Jedi Survival Star Wars games or whatever. But this looks like a really fun, like huge multiplayer game online that I think I'm definitely going to check it out. Like after the movies and like I'm only 80 pages out of 795 pages of the book, I'm kind of obsessed with this world now. Like I'm thinking of getting like a Dune tattoo in a year or whatever. This is something, it looks really cool. And actually of course, like people say like, oh, the graphics look good. It's like most games have good graphics now. Like if you think, I grew up like playing Nintendo 64, PlayStation 2. If you look back on those, the graphics are not like, they're of its time. And now we're in like a very different time where graphics just kind of look amazing in every game now. So yeah, that looks really awesome, and I hope they don't rush it and abuse all of their employees, because it would just be nice to get a good video game that was made humanely and nobody had to like not see their family and be locked in a dungeon for 8 months while making it, which has been a serious problem in not just like video games but like visual effects, Marvel and Disney. Here's another story that it's not really news, but I thought this was a funny story that Ryan Gosling shared this week in an interview with Variety. It's Ryan Gosling says Steven Spielberg hugged him and said he loved the Fall Guy so much. That was an all-time moment for me, Ryan said. The story is like, Ryan says, I saw Steven Spielberg walking in my direction. I don't know Steven Spielberg. I thought there's no way he's coming to talk to me, and yet he keeps getting closer. And then I thought, I know what's going to happen. I'm going to point to him, and he's going to go, not you, behind you. So I'm not going to do that. Finally, I said, me? And he goes, yeah, you. I go, I'm sorry, I didn't think you were coming to talk to me. And I stood up and he gave me a hug and said, I just saw Fall Guy and I loved it. As far as I'm concerned, it doesn't matter anymore what happens, Gosling continued. Steven Spielberg liked it. That was an all-time moment for me. I'm really excited for people to see it. I think it's a really special movie. They showed a new trailer for the Fall Guy last week or the week before, and I think it looks stupid, but it looks really fun and funny. I liked Bullet Train, even though it was like, it was whatever. You know, it wasn't anything amazing, but it was really funny and enjoyable to see in theaters. And it's the same guy making this, I believe. What's his name? David Leitch. And he made, I think he did Deadpool 2 and Bullet Train, of course. It looks funny, and I think Ryan Gosling is hilarious and everything he does, or whatever role he's doing, he has always been good for me. Like, he's one of my top 3 favorite actors or performers in general. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm kind of sick of seeing the Shot Through the Heart trailer that has played before every movie I've seen for the last 8 months. And just this week I was saying to my friend Zach that like all of these trailers that are playing before like Dune Part 2, I have seen all of these trailers since probably May, or actually, that's not true. Probably since like July, August, when it was like heavy strikes going on with all of the writers and actors. I'm so sick of seeing some of these trailers. But now, you know, the Fall Guy got a new trailer. It looks funny. I'm very much looking forward to that. This is going to be a bit of a rant, but I guess Zack Snyder, a guy I'm not very fond of, was on Joe Rogan's podcast, another guy I'm extremely not fond of. You know, 2 dickheads in one room, and he was saying a bunch of nonsense about Rebel Moon and how it was like, oh, it was more popular than Barbie. And so I have a good summary article of it, and he said, Zack Snyder says more people probably saw Rebel Moon on Netflix than saw Barbie in movie theaters. That's how crazy Netflix's distribution model is. Immediately off the bat, this is all such an exaggeration. Netflix and all these streamers are so dishonest with their like numbers, and there's like no way to measure if people are, you know, how many people saw it. And the fact that he's going to like say, oh, you know, my movie, which was first of all critically absolutely got destroyed. Second of all, it's not winning any Oscars or anything or whatever, you know, it didn't even like get any theatrical release. It just went straight to Netflix, which for me, a lot of movies today that go straight to streaming are like straight to VHS back in the day, or straight to DVD. Like, there are good movies like The Killer or other Netflix movies or streaming movies that do get a theatrical run because it's like, oh, these are worth like putting in, even if it's select theaters, we're willing to pay for this. But oh my God, Zack Snyder just lives in such a dream bubble, and him and his fans are so just delusional if they think like Barbie made so much money. It made like what, 1.3 billion, 1.2 billion. And if he's going to think like, oh, Rebel Moon had more people watching, like, we don't know what I really am curious what is defined as viewings on the streaming platforms, because like people will turn on a movie for a minute and a half and think, no, this is crap. Like, I'm going to exit out. Does that count as a watcher? Does that count as a viewer? I don't know. I think he's a little full of BS. To say that more people like technically could have seen Rebel Moon over Barbie, like, why are you dying on this hill? Or like, what are you trying to argue here? I don't know. I just think he's a total dumbass. He also said that DC is making Batman irrelevant if he can't kill. What the hell is this guy talking about? It has been like an established thing since like Batman the Animated Series really leaned into the fact that Batman doesn't kill and made it like a part of his character that like if he were to turn to killing and turn to guns, then he's no better than the Joe Chill who took his parents' life. Just, oh my God, Zack Snyder is just such a loser. I'm so tired of this bum. Like, stop letting him make movies. Oh my God, he's made maybe 2 good things like 300 and Watchmen. Other than that, I have no interest in Zack Snyder making mainstream stuff. I'm sick of him. I'm sick of him and his fans. The whole release the Snyder Cut thing was so insufferable for multiple years, and now he's just like trying to make headlines with all these just stupid comments. But anyways, let's move on from the negativity to something that was, you know, a little more enjoyable and a little more positive. Actually, surprisingly ended on a positive note. Ricky Stanicky, the movie of the week that I'm going to be reviewing. The synopsis is, 20 years after creating the imaginary Ricky Stanicky, 3 childhood friends still use the non-existent pal as a handy alibi for their immature behavior. When their spouses and partners get suspicious and demand to finally meet him, the guilty trio decides to hire washed-up actor Rod to bring him to life. However, when Rod takes his role of a lifetime a little too far, they begin to wish they never invented Ricky in the first place. So this is directed by Peter Farley, and the story is by David Ochino and Jason Decker, distributed by Amazon MGM Studios, as I said. Stars Zac Efron, John Cena, Andrew Santino, Anya Savchich, Lex Scott Davis, Jermaine Fowler, William H. Macy. It's a pretty good cast, actually. I think this was the movie that Zac Efron did after the Iron Claw, like right after, and I saw I think it was an Entertainment Weekly interview where they asked him like, oh, didn't you like just finish Iron Claw, or didn't you just do this movie after? And he said it was like a really good thing for him that after the Iron Claw, you know, the story of the Von Erichs was like, of course that's a really heavy story to tell, that he just like needed something to laugh at after and just like have some lighthearted comedy in his life, which I do think this movie is just like, it is a lighthearted comedy, which, you know, we need more of. But a lot of comedies don't get great reviews overall, but it has 50% or 48% on Rotten Tomatoes, a 6.1 average rating on IMDb, has a 2.8 average rating on Letterboxd. I don't know. I mean, I'm going to spoil the movie. It's not like, this is not a Dune Part 2 where, you know, it's very hush-hush because this movie could make $1 billion or hundreds of millions of dollars. This is a straight to streaming Amazon comedy. I'm just going to say spoilers. I mean, there's not really that much to spoil. You could guess where the story goes. So yeah, the premise is that like, so these three guys, the movie opens with them. They have a bag of dog poop and they're going to put it on someone's front door that doesn't hand out candy for Halloween. And it's a comedic scene. They light it on fire. The fire gets huge. It starts to burn down the house. They knock on the door. Nobody's home. They go inside. Turns out there is Halloween candy that they hand out and it's outside the house. So they're like, oh, like, what are we gonna do? And they try to put it out with one of their jackets and they're like, hey, we gotta bail. So one of them writes Ricky Stanicky on the jacket and they blame the fire on that guy. And we actually get like a pretty interesting like animated intro to this movie, and it's like all the times they've used Ricky Stanicky in their life. So yeah, basically like it's actually, I think this is like a good premise for a comedy movie, that these three guys have made an imaginary friend that they just like blame everything on, or they use him to get out of things and get out of plans, like, oh, I gotta go meet my friend Ricky, or stuff like that. And it's a very funny premise at first, but it does burn out at the end, and I'll get to that. So they are about to have a baby shower and they use Ricky Stanicky. They say, oh, his cancer's come back. So they use him as an excuse to go to Atlantic City, where they meet a washed up actor, Rod, or Rock Hard Rod as they call him. He is a comedic actor that does songs that are all basically all dick jokes or masturbation jokes. Like all the songs are about penises or nuts or masturbating. And I will say, going into this movie, I was like, oh man, this is gonna be like all just dick and fart jokes. It's probably gonna be pretty stupid, excuse me. And having seen it, the dick jokes were the funniest part of the movie. Like John Cena does all of these parody songs about masturbation to like classic rock songs, and it may be the funniest part of the movie is seeing the montage of him singing all these different parody songs. And I have to say, John Cena, he's already a hilarious guy to me and a good actor. He is very funny in this movie, and he is the standout in this movie for me. Hands down, he is easily the funniest part. Everything that he does in this movie is the funniest parts of every scene. He's always the highlight of every scene. His like introduction in this movie is really funny at the casino, and you know, we think these two like henchmen guys are after him because he keeps getting nervous when he sees these two guys around. He's like, oh, we gotta bail or whatever. And then at the end of the movie, it's just revealed that it's Billy Idol, I think. That's like, it's a cease and desist because he keeps using his songs in his show. And it's, it was just a funny joke. But anyways, John Cena is like the shining light of this movie. It's a really great premise that very quickly kind of runs out. The whole third act, you're kind of over it, and there's not that many jokes in the third act. It's actually like, it becomes like very dramatic in the third act. And Andrew Santino, or Anthony Santino, whatever his name is, the redhead guy that's on that like Bobby Lee podcast, he's pretty funny in this movie. Actually, he has a lot of good jokes. The one performer I wish they gave more to do was Zac Efron. He plays the straight man in this movie, and he's not really given a lot of comedic stuff to do. And he's a very funny guy. Like, I think Zac Efron is if you watch Bad Neighbors with him, or Neighbors, what's it called? That Seth Rogen and Rose Byrne movie with Zac Efron. Zac Efron and Dave Franco are very funny in those movies. He could have been given a lot more to do. It's just, like, watching this, there's just... I don't know. There's a lot of dead air in the dead air, as Frank Reynolds would say on Sunny. There's a lot of dead air in this movie where it's just like there's not like the jokes here are not landing, and there's so much more room for jokes in this, and like Zac Efron's character could be given more to do. John Cena is kind of like the only one that's really given great material to work with. Everyone else is just kind of given like, I don't know, sort of lame, like mediocre jokes. And I think it's not that it looks like a crappy Netflix movie, actually. Instead, it's an Amazon streaming movie. So it's cool that Amazon is doing straight to streaming movies, but it looks like a good movie. Like it looks like a Bottoms or a No Hard Feelings that would come out in a theater, or come out in the theaters. But I don't know, it's kind of just like a super typical cut and dry comedy. And the guy who directed this, Peter Farrelly, whatever his name is, I think he directed Dumb and Dumber, did he not? Like he's been a part of some very influential, monumental comedy movies. So at least they had someone, knowledgeable directing that knew what they were doing and has been part of iconic stuff, because there is some good directing in this, but there's also some weird editing in this. Like the ADR is very off in some scenes there, where maybe like they got people to improv in the booth doing ADR. But yeah, there's a couple times where you can catch like, oh, that was out of sync, or that was a weird cut or edit. So yeah, like I said, it's a good premise, but it just something about it doesn't all tie together. There's some spice missing here that was not part of the recipe. It is a fun movie to watch. Like I would say to people, why not check this out? Because it's a pretty stupid movie you can throw on with, if people are just relaxing at home and you want to watch something funny to just like, I don't know, that you can, this is a movie that a lot of people will probably go on their phones too. Like I surprisingly, like when I watch movies, I put my phone on Do Not Disturb and I try to like not go on it at all. If I have to check the time at home, of course, in a movie theater, I turn off my phone. I hate when people have their phones on. Or actually on Tuesday we were watching when my friend Zach and I were watching Dune Part 2 in IMAX, and someone in front of us, I can't remember what the line was. It was a super tense scene, and all you hear is the dun 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 of his like Google Pixel, and oh my god, I started giggling because it was such a tense moment. Maybe it was in the final fight when they're just about to square up, Fade Rotha and Paul, and they say, "May thy knife chip and shatter," and we just hear the Google Pixel text message sound, and I was trying so hard to keep my just dying laughter, and yeah, it was goofy. I hate when people put your phone away. You don't need to be on your phone in the theater. It's so obnoxious. Like people paid $20, and you don't need to talk in a movie either. People paid $20 not to hear you talk, and yeah, it's stupid. Anyways, what was I even talking about? Yeah, this is a movie that most people will probably go on their phone to at home. It is funny. Like if you liked, Bad Neighbors, or if you like stupid comedies, if you watched like Please Don't Destroy the Legend of Foggy Mountain or whatever it was, I watched that and I liked it. I thought it was funny enough. If you like stupid comedies that you can just throw on at home, this would be a good one for you. The jokes are kind of hit and miss, but like the ones that do land are very good. There's odd editing and ADR in it that, I don't know, it's like you probably won't notice it, but like it's just a couple times I looked and I was like, oh, that was rough. And I think like watching this, I don't know, people like right-wing people get like so concerned of like, oh, well, you couldn't make that today. Like everybody's so woke now. It's like comedy has like continued to be good in the last few years. Like I feel like we've gotten fine comedies in the last few years that are like jokes at the expense of no one. Like I watched Bottoms and I thought it was absolutely hilarious. And there's like the new movie Joyride that came out that like got really good reviews. So I don't know where people get the ideas that like you can't make comedies. Like I think the future of comedy is absolutely fine, and there's still very funny things coming out all the time. I don't know. Yeah, people just need to kind of chill with like, oh, cancel culture is ruining everything, we can't make jokes about anything. It's like you can make comedies that are absolutely fine and will do well and people will go see. I mean, Barbie was a hilarious movie for a lot of it, and it's not like, oh, well, they can't make jokes about that, they can't make jokes about that. You can still have tons of comedic situations and comedic lines at the expense of not making fun of minority groups or whatever. It's like, I don't know, it's just stupid, this whole idea that like comedy is dying and people can't make jokes anymore. It's like people still love comedy, people still love laughter. It's just like, relax. Anyways, enough of my ranting. Overall, Ricky Stanicky, would I recommend it? Yeah, why not? Give it a watch. It's fine. It's not good, but it's not terrible. terrible. In a year where I've watched Madam Web, it's hard to have a proper sense of what's good and what's bad anymore. I certainly know what's bad, and that's Madam Web. But this was like, I didn't want to turn this off after 20 minutes. I wasn't like, maybe I won't mention this in the episode or do any reviewing on it. I was like, you know what, this is fine. And I feel like people like Zac Efron, people like John Cena, I'm sure there will be people out there who this is for. It's a totally fine movie. Go check it out. It's on Amazon. What I really want to talk about kind of more this week is Shōgun, a new FX Disney show that has 3 episodes right now on Disney Plus that I would highly recommend checking out. It's a week-to-week show. It's not all drop at once and binge as fast as you can, so we never talk about it like Stranger Things or most Netflix things that just drop all at once and nobody's going to talk about it after a week. So Shōgun, set in Japan in the year 1600, Lord Yoshi Toranaga is fighting for his life as his enemies on the Council of Regents unite against him when a mysterious European ship is found marooned in a nearby fishing village. So it's an American historical drama miniseries created by Rachel Kondo and Justin Marks, and it's based on the 1975 novel of the same name, Shōgun, by James Clavell, which was actually previously adapted into a 1980s miniseries, So it's 10 episodes altogether, and we've already got 3, so there's 7 left. And it stars, oh my god, okay. I will apologize in advance for how bad I'm about to butcher the pronunciation of a lot of these names. Okay, anyways, it stars Hiroyuki Sanada as Yoshi Toranaga, Cosmo Jarvis as John Blackthorne, Anasawa as Tota Mariko. Those are like the main 3 characters in the show that we're interacting with a lot. So it has like 99% on Rotten Tomatoes, really good reviews. I'm seeing a lot of positive stuff online about it. And this is a very well-made show. I'm really appreciating the quality of production in this show. I've just watched Band of Brothers and The Pacific, and every week I'm watching Masters of the Air, and all 3 of those shows are just like so well made. And this show is like another product to kind of jump onto. And just watching Dune Part 2, like you just enjoy how well made everything looks. There's no crappy CGI, and that's the same with Shōgun. This is a gorgeous show. It looks so good. All of the lighting, there's tons of nighttime scenes or like kind of dusk, rainy, dark scenes, and you're not struggling to see people. You're not squinting your eyes or having to close all the shades in your house and turn up the brightness of your TV. Like, it's a very well lit show, which I'm appreciating, and I think a lot of people on Twitter are appreciating a lot. The performances are really great. Everyone, this whole cast is just so it's really good. Everyone is a great actor in this, actually, and everyone is just, it feels so bought into the premise. And nobody has iPhone face, which I'll explain. iPhone face is a premise that when you're watching a time period and you see people or see performers in the show that just like look like they're from 2024, or people that are in a time where they shouldn't know what an iPhone is, and you see the performer's face and it looks like they do know what an iPhone is, and it can take you out of a movie. So I'll give an example. Sydney Sweeney, if she was in like a movie from the past, like she was in, I don't know, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I think she's in that. Like, she has a face that just like looks very today. Like, she looks like a very iPhone face performer. Whereas the guy who played, the kid in The Holdovers, he looks like he's from like the 1970s. He looks like he has no clue what an iPhone is. So everyone in this show does not look out of time. They all look very of this time, and they just like look very bought into their characters. And actually, I think like the costumes and the design of everything, I mean, they probably are, I would hope they're very close to what was at the time, but all the costuming is just amazing. Like, I could just look at what everyone is wearing in this show for hours, because everyone just like is so dressed gorgeously, and all the soldiers, all their armor just like looks awesome. Nothing looks cheap. Nothing looks like crappy. So hats off to FX and I guess Disney, but like, screw Disney. Hats off to FX for just like letting this show do what it can to have the utmost quality, because it is really paying off, and I'm seriously loving everything about this show. What I really like is the premise is the Portuguese have like, they dominate Japan, and they have Christianity in Japan, and the Portuguese are there. And so this English ship comes to shore, and he's a Protestant, not a Catholic, and all the Portuguese are Catholics. So the way he communicates, the Englishman, John Blackswan, I think is his name, he's actually speaking Portuguese with all the Portuguese and the Japanese who know Portuguese, but in the show he's speaking English. so the audience can understand. And what I really like is they let everyone speak Japanese that's speaking Japanese, and they let everyone that's speaking Portuguese or English just speak English. And I really think, first of all, Japanese is a beautiful language, and just in general, listening to other languages in the world, that's one of my favorite things to do. Like when I'm traveling, I just love listening to people speaking in their own languages. I just think other languages are so beautiful to listen to, but Japanese in particular is just so cool to listen to in this show. And I really appreciate that they didn't have just everyone speaking English and, oh, well, like people will know who the Japanese are because they'll say they're Japanese, or we'll have Japanese performers. And then, so everyone will speak English to each other. All the Japanese people will speak English to each other. No, they have everyone speaking Japanese, or everyone speaking the language that they should. And then the Portuguese and like all the Europeans are just speaking English to each other, which is, it's great. And like the characters, the Portuguese and the Japanese who do know Portuguese are meant to be communicating, but those who can't speak Portuguese, and there is a language disconnect between our main character and many other characters. And it's like, it's great because then it just lets the performers do the work with their body language. And I mean, personally speaking, I've traveled where I don't speak the language, and I've tried to communicate with, Croatian or Slovenian family members who don't speak any English. And it's like, it is a very interesting way of not being able to communicate. You can only use like showing things or kind of body language and sounds almost. And it's, I don't know, just the bonding in the show that you have between characters that aren't speaking the same language, but have a common goal is just, it's really fun to see. And I'm loving it so far. The action is great in it. And I think it's so well directed and so well acted. And it's actually not a super gruesome show. I mean, not really spoilers. You see someone get beheaded in the show and they show it, and it's a very like shocking moment because there's not tons of gross violent stuff, but you see someone get beheaded and it's a shock. I was like, whoa, and kind of shot back on the couch. I was shook. It was like all of a sudden someone takes their sword out and just beheads this guy that's complaining about something. And I think like the show really picks its moments to show the kind of disgusting violence or like really violent outbursts. And like the action it's actiony, but people are being shot with bows and arrows. They're not being decapitated every single time there's an action sequence or something like that. So I'll give the show credit. It really does kind of pick its moments to show like someone gets boiled to death, and that's pretty gross, and they don't like show the entire time. They kind of just show little snippets of it, but it's pretty gross when they do show it. And when that guy gets decapitated, his cap was detated, as Michael Scott would say it. But I really do enjoy that this show is really picking its moments to show the violent outbursts instead of just like desensitizing to us, because I do feel like in a lot of shows we get kind of desensitized to violence and desensitized to gore or whatever, but I think it's like really smart and when they're picking their moments in this show. And this is just like a really cool part of history that we're in. Like I've not had the pleasure to study ancient Japan or ancient Asia at all. I was mainly focused on European studies, and my master's was in Yugoslavian history. So this is like just a really cool chapter of history to learn about, and I'm very intrigued to go and read the book after I finish Dune, because I've seen so many people talking about the book online, just like how great it is, and that every time they read it, they take something different away from it. But this is like a very fascinating, this is when the world was being colonized, of course, and there's a very, like, the European, the Englishman, John Black Swan, when he initially arrives, he sees the Portuguese, and he's talking to the Portuguese, and the Portuguese don't want him to say where he's from. And he clues in, he's like, you haven't told them about England or any other countries, have you? They only think there's Portugal. And this is just like a very fascinating part of time where the Japanese thought they had a friendship and a working relationship with the Portuguese, but then they slowly realized that they're establishing churches everywhere in Japan, and like they are in the future possibly going to be conquered by the Portuguese. And that's kind of the where this story is leading us into, of John Black Swan wanting to work with the Japanese to push back on the Catholics, and which yeah, damn right, let's push back on the Catholics. So it's just a really interesting part of history to kind of go back to. I'm really enjoying just like watching stuff that's from different eras. And I assume this is a very historically accurate show, because it is I don't know, it just seems very honest of its time, and everyone's kind of gross in times. And there's a funny part where John Blackswan is offered to bathe, and he's like, well, I've already bathed this week, whereas here, hopefully most people have a shower every day, but it's a very different life from what we live, and it's just fun to peer into that. And I don't know, I've been trying to understand like because I don't want the show spoiled for me, but I've looked up like, oh, what are the kind of major differences between so far the show and the book. And a lot of people on Reddit are saying like, oh, this show, like the pacing is crazy and we're getting so much of an introduction to everyone so fast. But then I see like other people saying, I kind of disagree with that, because it's just that the book is like because it's a book, it can take as much time as it wants introducing everyone. Whereas the show, it only has 10 episodes. Like it needs to bring people up. So this is like, of course it's an adaptation. And as we've seen we just watched Dune Part 2 last week. There needs to be simplifications and summaries of certain characters, because we just don't have the time to spend all of this time with people on screen like we would in a book. So yeah, it's very interesting to see how, I don't know, I would be interested to go and read the book after the show is finished in a couple months, or a month probably, or whatever it is, in 7 weeks. Now reading Dune after seeing part 1 and part 2, it's very interesting to go back and see what's changed, as I said. And this show, it's to me, just watching the show, like I'm only watching the show and haven't read any of the book or had no knowledge of this world going into it. I'd be very interested to see what the kind of tweaks were from page to screen. How have they kind of adapted it to make it more accessible for people, or how are they pacing it so they can make the story fit into these 10 episodes versus, if it's a 800-page book that has 59 chapters or whatever, how are they trying to do every episode covering multiple chapters and stuff like that. It's fun to see that kind of stuff. But yeah, I've seen some people, praising it online. Some people saying, oh, it's super choppy and like it's just ripping parts of the book out or whatever. I mean, it's an adaptation, and I feel like book fans are very hard to please, because that's like, that book is the Bible of the show and where they're going to. And if it's a straight adaptation from the book, then it's difficult. Sometimes it can be boring when you just do everything from the book exactly as it says. It's like, okay, well, this is exactly how it was in the book. It's fun to see it come to life, but there's nothing like exciting or changing or left to the imagination, because we've seen everything from the book. But yeah, I would totally recommend Shōgun. I'm going to be watching it. It comes out every Tuesday on Disney. Maybe it's live on FX as well if you have cable or satellite. Yeah, it's a great show to watch. It's really entertainment. If you don't like subtitles, what's the excuse of not being able to do subtitles? If you don't like subtitles, it's going to be hard for you to follow, because everyone's speaking Japanese, or all the Japanese people, or everyone that can speak Japanese is speaking Japanese, and you have to follow the subtitles. So this is a show that you can't just be on your phone and not pay attention to. You need to be fully invested in the show and with watching. And it's like 50-minute episodes, which I really enjoy. So you just kind of like sit and let the world breathe. And in my eyes, they're doing a great job so far of really just like letting us sit with these characters, introduce everyone. It's a lot of people to take in. Like, I don't fully know everyone's names off by heart. It's only like every episode while I'm watching, I'm like, oh right, yeah, that's their name. But it's really fun. I'm enjoying it a lot. And yeah, check that out, because I highly recommend it. It's a really fun action drama, historical drama show that's cool, and like we don't get a lot of good ones, and I feel like the historical dramas we do get are all just like British BBC shows that are pretty cheesy and corny, but this is just like a really fun show to see come to life. And I think that's going to do it for this week, guys. As always, you can rate and review this show on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, Acast. You can find it on every podcast platform or every streaming platform. And, why not give it 5 stars? It helps the show grow. It really helps me promote the show. I'm also on YouTube. You can like, comment, and subscribe on this if you're listening on YouTube. Why not follow me on Letterboxd at KikiJ70, and you can see all my reviews of my movies instantaneously. How fun is that? You can just watch along with me. Why not email the show at watcherofallthings@gmail.com. So yeah, rate and review 5 stars, like, comment, subscribe, follow me on Letterboxd, email me, let me know, what did you think of Ricky Stanicky? Have you seen Dune again? And a bit of a shorter one this week, because next week we have a big show. Next week, it's the Oscars. I'm recording this on Saturday, March 9th in the morning. The Oscars are tomorrow night. I'm really excited. I'm looking forward to it. I know award shows aren't for everyone, but it's fun to see, who's being recognized, what movies are being rewarded for their hard work. I have a lot of high hopes for some performers, but thank you so much for listening. Once again, episode 8. I just previously made this show kind of more public. I was doing this probably episodes 1 to 5. I didn't really tell anyone about this show, and I was having fun just kind of doing this for myself and not like, I want to do this podcast because I want fame, I want popularity, I want to have my opinion out there. No, I'm just kind of doing this as like an audio journal for myself because I'm watching all of this stuff and I like to sit and just reflect and talk to other people about things that I'm watching. And like I said in episode 1, I don't think my family can take much more of me talking their ears off about stuff they don't really care about. So why not make a little audio journal for myself? So I've had so many great messages and people telling me, I downloaded the show, it's really great. I'm just like, I'm so happy you're doing this, or like, stick with it, it's like so much fun to listen to. Like people I've known from high school that I haven't talked to in a few years, or of course my friends have been just so supportive, and my family as well. So thank you all, guys. I hit 100 downloads this week, which was really cool, that I saw on Acast after not telling anyone about it for 2.5 months, to all of a sudden me making it very public on my Instagram and sharing the link with everyone and being like, oh yeah, like listen. And when you're younger, there's kind of a fear of judgment, because I think people tend to judge people that are trying at something. But so far all I've had is just love and encouragement for giving something that's low stakes. I'm just doing this as a fun hobby on my weekends, and I'm having so much fun doing this, even if it's kind of, I don't know, stupid shit like Ricky Stanicky that's maybe, I don't know, definitely not winning any awards anytime soon. But yeah, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you all again. I hope you come back next week. We're going to talk the Oscars. Thank you all for listening. I hope you have a phenomenal week. I will see you in the next one.